Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Made. With me today is Dora Phillip, and she is an entrepreneur. I have to read it. Restaurateur, digital marketer, mom, and wife. So, welcome, Dora. Oh, I forgot to mention, and Dora was also a college roommate of mine back, I think, sophomore year, right?
Sophomore year.
Yes.
So good to be here. Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah. You're welcome. I'm so glad you agreed to come on. We are talking about season 2 of And Just Like That, the season finale, which was The Last Supper Part 2, Entrée. I'm just going to get right into actually the series synopsis of And Just Like That. So it's set 11 years after the events of the 2010 film Sex and the City 2. The women of Sex and the City make their transition from a life of liberation and friendship in their 30s to a more complicated reality of life and friendship in their 50s. So I just listed like Carrie is a widow. Miranda is going to be getting a divorce, or I don't know if they officially got one yet. Charlotte is navigating parenting teens and going back to work. And Samantha lives in England, is basically not on the show, although she makes her cameo in this one.
Yes, she does.
Yes, she does. So I got the episode recap from Wiki Fandom. I don't know who wrote it because they did not credit the person. So Carrie reaches out to Aiden to ask about Wyatt's well-being, his son, who had driven drunk and got into a car accident and broken several bones. Samantha's plan for a surprise visit during Carrie's, quote, Last Supper takes an unexpected turn. So I have it here. These are my notes. Makes a cameo appearance and calls Carrie from a car service and won't be able to make it due to delays. She was just going to fly in for the night and then leave the next day. Now, you probably know this, that they didn't even really film it together. It was completely filmed separately because the two women do not get along.
They don't.
It's so sad. I don't know. I mean, obviously I don't know the true story. You know, there's 3 sides to every story, right? And from what the public looks like Kim Cattrall like really hates Sarah Jessica Parker, and Sarah Jessica Parker doesn't say anything back really about it, right?
She's been pretty quiet, right? Like she's kind of kept it. It seemed like from what I've read, and I don't know if this is true, that I think Samantha, or what is her, Kim? She was very hesitant to go back because there have been so many iterations of this, piece of work with like the various movies, and now we're going back, and she just didn't want it because they ended on such a high note. It seemed like she didn't want to keep coming back because Samantha, right, is this sex symbol from when we were in our 20s. I always thought of them because they're about 10 years our senior. So I always kind of thought of them as our big sisters in a way.
Yeah.
And now, you know how ageism is, and how God forbid that you're female and you age, it's like there's only 2 different genres of women. It's like the hot young thing, or you're like a grandma. There's like nothing in the middle, right? Like 60's not supposed to be sexy, and Samantha was the epitome of sex. And now she's in her 60s. I mean, she just is. That's how it works. We all get older if we're fortunate enough, right? And I have the feeling that had a lot to do with it because she is noticeably older. It's been 20 years.
Yeah.
It's been 20 years, of course.
Yeah.
That's what's supposed to happen. But there's that, she was in her prime then. And I think she kind of wanted to probably stay there, in my opinion. She wanted to like stay in that realm where her skin is like taut and perfect and blah, 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 And I mean, she looked beautiful within the, cameo, but that's a whole other thing because I think they've all been attacked for their, either treating their skin with fillers or not treating their skin with fillers. They can't win. It's like you rip them apart for being old, but then they go and do something about it. And then you say, oh, she's doing something and she's like injecting this or doing that. It's like,
right.
how that's
I know.
fair. I get really animated about that.
No, anyway. I hear you. I think too, I've also read on a different note that she really doesn't like Sarah Jessica Parker. She even, I think when Kim's brother, like I know her, Kim's brother died, Sarah Jessica Parker publicly said, I'm sorry or something like that. She's like, just leave my family alone. You've done enough. Like I've seen it. I saw it in print, like online.
So there's some stuff behind it.
Then I read something else that supposedly when they were all on the show together, she would always be kind of not left out, but she also was living a different lifestyle than them. Even though she was older than them, she would go to like P. Diddy parties and all that, like really be out and about, where they were not as, I guess, in the spotlight as her. I mean, even back then too, with like Sex and the City, there was no social media, so we didn't probably see it as much.
We didn't.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. It's sad about that, if that is part of it.
Yeah, totally.
Because I know I just have this idea of Sarah Jessica Parker as being a really nice person, but who knows? But I was glad she was on. Yeah,
and like, who knows? Like, you know, friendships kind of go like this, right? Yeah. You know, female friendships, and I tell my daughters, you know, because they're now in their teens and they're navigating all of these relationships with other girls, you know, and I tell them, I said, listen to me, this isn't it's going to change a little bit, but you're still going to have drama. It doesn't go away. And female friendships can get really, really, really tight, and you're inseparable and you're best friends and you tell each other everything. They know every move you make. And then you can have like something can happen, like an argument, and then it's devastating because you feel like you lost like a limb, you know? So I say, I'm still going through this and I'm 48. You know, I can't tell you how many best friends I've had. And we like burned hot and heavy for like a couple of years, and then something happens and it's like, I have to draw boundaries. Do you know what I mean? And then you get into all this, you get into all of these things. You know, you get into all of that. So I've told her that. So who knows really what has gone on? It's probably a bit of both.
Yep.
You know, maybe jealousy. There's always jealousies and drama. And honestly, you know, I'm not feeling bad for any of them. Like they're just fine. They're fine.
They are. True. They are fine. Okay. So when she calls and she says, you know, what does she say to her? She goes, Samantha, do you have a British accent or something? And she goes, who's Samantha? This is Annabelle Bronstein from India. So I knew when she said it, when I first watched it, the first time I was like, it did not pop into my head immediately what that was from, which episode or whatever. So it was from the episode. I actually have the number and everything.
Was it their final season? Was it when because they were breaking into the Soho house?
Soho.
It was that really hot summer. Because you know what's interesting about it? Because you might have still been living in the city then. What
I moved out. So remember they divided the series finale in half. They did like a bunch of episodes. Basically, I still lived in the city for the first half, and then I moved back here when they did the second half. So it was kind of funny. Yeah,
I remember that. Yeah, because it was that hot summer. Do you remember that really brutal summer?
Yeah.
It was so hot, and everyone was just dying of sweat, and the whole city like stunk. You know?
Yeah.
I think it was that summer that they broke into, or probably Samantha grabbed that membership card.
Yep. And I don't know if they had the year, but it was season 10. No, sorry. I'm sorry. Season 6 of Sex and the City, episode 10. So that wasn't.
Tell you, I was living in the city then, and I was working in Soho then too. So I heard someone said, Sex and the City is filming outside. It was like 2:00. I had already taken lunch. I'm like, later. And I left. And I ran downstairs. It was like spring in Houston or something. And I watched Samantha Miranda and Carrie, they were walking down Green or something,
Yeah.
like 25 different times doing the same scene. And I was across watching that. And whenever I see that,
where am I?
I couldn't believe it. It was so amazing. I was like, just standing there, like, just like a weirdo. And I remember Sarah Jessica Parker going in, like looking into this other store and like making googly faces and la la la.
Mm-hmm.
And it was her baby, James Wilkie, who was little. He was
in the store.
at the time. And she had her nanny, and she was like trying to make him laugh in between takes. So I thought that was cute. And that was the closest I've ever gotten to them. So.
Well, that's funny because my similar story was they were filming. This was right. She was, I believe, pregnant at the time, but just pregnant. I'm pretty sure because that's when she had the bob cut.
Yes.
Sarah Jessica Parker. They were filmed. It was right after September 11th, so they must have been filming probably like 2002, I bet. And I worked at Morgan Stanley right in Times Square, and I heard they're filming Sex and the City. All these people kept coming up from being in the lobby or being out, being like, "Oh, I just saw her." So this was the episode where she was like New York. She was like, it was really an ode to New York, and she went out and she met. It was like Navy Week or something.
Sailors or something.
Yes,
the sailors.
Yes,
yeah.
And she was being filmed. Yeah, I guess she had. I never effing saw her. I went down there like a few times. I did see them. They filmed the scene where the boys, whatever, the men were hailing a cab, and they were right in our. See, I was between 47th and 48th. I think it was 47th Street and Broadway. And they were filming that scene, and they're very good looking. That main guy who she got with. Oh my gosh. Anyway. Yeah. So, and you know what's funny? This article. Oh no, they do say the Soho House. At one point, they just called it Soho. I'm like, no, it's the Soho House. What are you talking about? I was glad I remembered that. Did you ever go to the Soho House?
No.
Did you go over the? I keep thinking.
I was like, listen, I worked in publishing. I was like, I was poor. I wasn't making.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I know I didn't go to the pool. I just wonder if I went to a bar there. I keep thinking I did. Like at night one time. I don't know. Maybe not. Who knows?
Well, you had a very glamorous life.
I didn't have money though. I didn't have the money. It was just me, baby. Somebody else was doing it. Yeah. Okay.
I know. It was a different time.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, Miranda, this is continuing with what's happening in this episode. Miranda and Steve decide to transition into a platonic friendship. Charlotte urges Harry to take on a more active role in managing their household. Yeah, he was annoying. Naya achieves the esteemed position of being elected to the American Law Institute. Now, I want to add to that, but what hit her was one of the first thoughts. She went to go call her ex and felt like, I don't have a man to share it with. And she felt really bad about that. And that's not a bad thing. It's not necessarily, I need a man, but to share it with someone who loves you, who would be so happy, like you want to share that. So
someone who's watched your journey with it and watched how hard you worked and struggled to get there and to be considered and get that placement, which is prestigious, right? And she just realized, oh my God, I don't have anybody to share this with. But she made a brave choice and to get out of her marriage, that wasn't working for her. And, it's so complicated.
Yeah, definitely. And it says the dynamics of various relationships undergo clarification during Carrie's dinner gathering. Giuseppe, initially planning to return to Rome, changes his mind as Anthony breaks down emotional barriers. Sorry, starting to laugh.
I know. Yeah, that was
the other, the virginity. Lisa and her. Yeah, we could go into that too. Lisa and Herbert make progress in the aftermath of Lisa's miscarriage. Che and Miranda establish a cordial understanding. Seema grows irritated by Robbie's constant work-related calls. Feeling he's becoming distant, Naya forms a connection with Toussaint Feldman, the Michelin chef preparing Carrie's dinner. And as I mentioned in one of the Homebodies Only episodes, he is the guy from Janet Jackson's video. Oh my God.
Didn't you love Janet Jackson? I feel like you did.
Yeah.
I remember that.
It was a slow song. Oh my gosh. Oh, Again. It was called Again. and I'll never fall in love with you again. And he is in that video. He's so hot. That was like the first time I ever saw him.
That was from freshman year, wasn't it? I feel like I played it over and over again. And my ex roommate Heather and my ex friend Heather was like, "I'm gonna hide this CD.
I'm gonna kill you."
I can't stand it anymore. I played on repeat. I was like depressed about something. I too.
We saw her. Yes, we saw her in concert. I think it was just me and Jen. And
was it?
We got last minute tickets. We were pretty high up. We were close to the stage. And I could have sworn she did wave to us. I swear she waved. And Jen just started laughing hysterically. I'm like, she just waved to us. She's like, no, she didn't. She can see us. I know it.
Totally did.
That was the If. I think it was called If, that album, wasn't it? Or was it just called Janet? I don't know, but If was on there, and that's also a really good song, too. Anyway. Okay. Let's see. Carrie asks them each. This is the part I added in because this was not on here on Wiki Fandom. She asks each of them a word they want to let go of, right? So something they want to let go of. One word. Yes. I wrote them down. So Che says rules. Smoke says competitiveness. Jackie says nervousness. Anthony says control. Giuseppe says roam. Ravi says social media. Seema says distrust. Naya says yesterday. Miranda says guilt, even though they weren't supposed to repeat it. Lisa also says guilt. Herbert never says a word. He says, come back to me. What the heck?
I know. And then they never went back.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like, what?
They didn't go back. And he was, I think they wanted to show him to be so affected by what his wife was going through. And I think they were trying to show that he was being this like super supportive husband and let the spotlight, let her kind of take that on. And he took a step back. That's kind of how I interpreted it.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense.
What do I know?
Charlotte says limits and Carrie says expectations. And well, you know what? Probably if I listen, I have listened to the podcast, the Writer's Room podcast for this, and I probably should have listened maybe for this. I didn't. Maybe they explain it because they did explain it.
I should have.
It's good. Okay. Miranda leaves the event early to stand in for Raina in a BBC interview. Subsequently, she meets Joy, a BBC producer for A Casual Drink, who I'm thinking we might see next season. Following the dinner, Aiden arrives and informs Carrie of his decision to permanently reside in Virginia with his sons. Carrie agrees to put the romantic relationship on hold for 5 years until Wyatt reaches adulthood. They don't mention this in the recap, but Seema also, Ravi is going away for 5 months. So the two ladies.
Five. That was an interesting sort of parallel between them, I thought.
Yeah. And then they both, they go to a trip to Greece because Seema books it. So that's how it ends in Greece. On the beach.
And they're both like independently, wealthy people. And although Seema is still actively working, they have that ability. They're at this point in their lives, right, that they can afford it. They can, their men are focusing and putting themselves first in terms of what they're looking for. That's true. And so they're like, you know what? I don't need to be waiting in the wings. This is what I'm going to be doing. Yeah. And we'll see how it kind of pans out. Mike was asking me because he was watching it with me. And he said, do you think within the next season, will they start filming at the 5 years after point? And I said, I never really thought of that.
I never did either.
Yeah, because he's like, well, where do you think they are going to go with that? I said, it's a really good question. I'm not sure, but I could feel Carrie's, like when she went like this, and she's like, I can't believe that we are back here again. Like after
I just got chills. Yeah.
That lost love that, because we do have many loves. There's just not this one, that's some like fairy tale that Hollywood made up and makes us feel bad. It's possible to have multiple loves of your life, even with friendships. You can have soulmates.
I agree.
It's not just this one thing. And so it was so interesting how they both step back into that relationship 10 years later where their love hadn't really dissipated. And it didn't mean they were being false to their spouses. They loved their spouses.
Yeah.
She was in love with Big. Big was the love of her life, you know? But Aiden was as well. And so there was still a place for him. But again, like, you know, it's like a man that's putting something, and of course it's his children. He has to, and I was, you know, just listening to Aiden, and I was telling Mike, I said, you're so much like Aiden, you know, because so protective. Even when he talked about his son Wyatt, like in that weird kind of drawl, said that one needs a lot of watching, something like that, right?
Yeah.
That one needs a lot of watching. You know?
Yeah.
And it was very sweet. But he, you know, just being a parent, that's what he has to do. And she didn't have children. So, you know, she was able to focus on their life together, whereas he still had these, you know, people he is raising and responsible for emotionally and financially. Right. So, but what really took me, why I wanted this episode, why I mentioned it to you, was Carrie's word. Yeah. It was Carrie's word. Expectations. That's what I resonated with. Like, I certainly resonate with all of their journeys because, again, as I said before, that there are big sisters, or that's how I felt. And now we're pushing 50. They're already in their 50s. Samantha's in her 60s. But it's this next really big step. It feels like 50 is a big deal. Like, I don't know. It's, you know, Oprah. I remember when Oprah was turning 50, watching her show. And I was thinking then, you know, like Oprah was like, this is when life really starts. It's really when you know who you are. And you're more who you are than you ever had been. And I think that's now approaching 50. I really agree with that, you know, and I'm excited for that decade. I'm scared for the decade. And, but also Carrie's word, just kind of circling back to it, just with expectations. I can't tell you. It's so true. Like, expectations can level you. I've leveled myself having expectations. And when you let go of them, and it's not about not letting other people disappoint you if you don't have those expectations, it's more as if the universe will give you something so much more than you ever could have imagined for yourself. And that's something I keep forgetting, you know, because I'm in a place of like control. I'm trying to control and be the puppeteer of all these different things constantly. And even for myself with my own personal goals, it's like, stop with the expectations, drop it, because there's something that could be so much greater that I'm not even considering, because we're all in this rat race. We're all trying to survive, you know, these last couple of years with COVID, with the work that I'm in, you know, it's been, I feel like I've lost 4 years of my life. Like, I kind of can't believe that this is year number 4, that March 16th is year number 4. It's stunning. And I think back, I'm like, oh my God, I was 44. And, you know, people say 40s, you know, the 40s is this great decade. It's like you're, you know, still young-ish. And you have knowledge, and you might have kids, and, you know, husbands and wives or spouses and family, and tons of responsibility, of course. But also there's this excitement that is there because you're getting to know who you really are. And then, like, I was having fabulous 40s. Like, I turned 40. I got my body back finally because I found yoga. You know, after having kids, I was just not motivated enough to like lose the baby weight and all of that. And I just got myself together probably when Margot turned 5. I had her at 37, I think I want to say. I had Margot at 37. Yeah. So by my early 40s, you know, I was ready to get my own life back and myself back. And then those 4 years these last 4 years. So in some ways I feel a little gypped, and in some ways I feel like it's been a significant 4 years, but it's been exhausting for all of us, It really like has been. That's a different topic, but I did appreciate how the show did address the pandemic during that first season. So, and even with 9/11, they did in some way address it back then, if you recall. Like
they did.
With they like had the Chrysler building instead of the Twin Tower,
Yeah.
And did an homage to the city.
Back.
So, but anyway, expectations. That was the word that struck me. And also Lisa, when she found out she was pregnant, I'll share something. I found out I was pregnant the day before my 46th birthday. And and I was just going for my OBGYN appointment. And it was just, just a regular appointment. And my doctor comes in, and we were just joking because it was her husband that delivered Tessa. And I had 4
miscarriages.
Pregnancy losses. Yes, I did. I had 4 before Tessa, 1 in between Tessa and Margot. And then this was my 7th pregnancy. And it was, so I understand exactly what she was going through when she's like,
oh my God.
No. And she started to cry. I sobbed, and my doctor came in and put her hand on my hand. It was like, I have to tell you something. And I'm like, oh my God, what? Like, is it cancer? Is it cervical cancer?
Right.
And she's like, you are pregnant. And I just,
oh my God.
Wow. Because, and I'm not someone that, listen, I wore a PUSSY hat. I marched on Washington. Okay. I am a feminist. I have a big mouth. I stand up for things that I believe in. And I'm not someone who takes pregnancy loss light. I don't take abortion lightly.
Yeah.
And I made that decision. I didn't know if I was going to talk about it, but that really struck me. And, it was eviscerating, and it took me back, and I was very angry for a long time. You know how she was angry at Herbert, and she was in bed, and she was like, I can't believe I'm just so mad. And, I don't remember she asked him to get a vasectomy. I had made 2 appointments for my husband to over the years, and he kind of blew them off because of work. That's what he said. And I told him, and I remember telling him, I'm telling you now, if you ever get me pregnant, I swear to God, I'm going to kill you. Like, I can't be on traditional forms of birth control because I have a blood clotting disorder, which is why I had all the miscarriages. So I found out I inherited this gene. It's a prothrombin 10 something, blah, 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 like a million numbers to it. And so that's my placenta would basically clot. And then the embryo would only get to a certain point, and then the placenta, because the embryo gets nutrients out of the placenta, and it would clot. And so the embryo would then start to plateau and then start to die because of the lack of nutrients. So we found that out. But also I can't be on really anything because it can cause a blood clot to my heart, lung,
oh my gosh,
brain. So I have not been on birth control for so long. I mean, Margot was like 9 years old when I got pregnant, when I found out. So, we had gone like almost 10 years without getting pregnant. And I'm thinking like, I'm 40, I'm pushing 45. My eggs are super duper old at this point, or whatever they call us, like geriatric pregnancy at 35. What they label you at 35, let alone freaking 45.
Right.
So, that was a really difficult time, but I was mad at my husband, the way I just resonated with it. Like when they were in and she was just kind of like clutching, like, I just can't even believe this, because she was on the precipice of doing all of these big things.
Yeah.
And then it's like to go back to that, to go back to diapers, to go back to the beginning. It's like, when is it my turn?
Yeah.
You know, when is it my turn to like be able to work without guilt, you know, to be able to, because I was, when we opened the Hollow, you know, Margot was like 5 months old and I wore her on my back. You know, I was always with like a car seat carrier and holding like a toddler's hand. And I was still trying to do all this work, being saddled with, you know, obviously family life, but it always enraged me that I felt like Mike could just go off, just drive the car away, go off into the sunset and be able to go to work while I'm doing work too. Plus I have the kids. Yeah. And whenever I would go there, they would come with me, you know, during opening day. Margot's on my back, like in a baby Bjorn, you know? So like the whole thing, I got it. Yeah. I understood that. Yeah. And a couple months later, then Roe versus Wade was overturned.
Or overturned, right?
So I just like,
wow.
I had probably close to like a mental breakdown over that situation. And I know we're not talking about politics or anything, but it's just what it was another experience. So it was Carrie's it was the way she said, you know, that she was leaving that part of her life. And then also seeing Lisa kind of combat, you know, is this really what I want to do? And then she felt so guilty even during Carrie's party that she excused herself and walked into the bathroom and said to her husband, did I cause that? Did my words cause that? And, you know, I'm sure to a huge degree, that she was relieved.
Yes.
That it was
and then felt bad about it. Like, torn. Yeah, definitely.
You know, I remember being told, you know, it was very early for me. It was like 5 weeks. That's what she had said. And I said, what are my options? And we went over them. And I had, with my miscarriages, I had the first 3, I had passed them all naturally. And if anyone's ever gone through that, then they know it's very painful. It's scary. It's not like just having a period, you know, there's a lot that happens during it, and it's traumatizing.
And your hormones are all messed up. Your hormones are so messed up.
And especially because you start, you know, because when you're initially pregnant, that first 3 months, there are bodily changes with you. And so you're still kind of stuck with some of those bodily changes until your hormones kind of level out. But with my 4th, I demanded a DNC. And I remember that it was a Friday and it was 12 weeks. And I went in for my ultrasound and blah, blah, blah. And they, you know, were looking for the heartbeat and everything. And I'd been through it 1,000 times and I already had tested. So I knew what to look for. And I said, you know, what is wrong? And she said, I have to go get the doctor. So I already knew, but I'm like, you know, in that bed and having my feet in the stirrups and just like staring at the ceiling, waiting for the doctor to come in to confirm what I already knew. And, you know, they wanted me to pass it naturally. And I said no. And then they scheduled it for Tuesday. And I said, are you kidding me? You're going to let me, because at that point it was 12 weeks. So there's heartbeat and it's a little fetus, you know, it has a little everything. And I said, you're not going to let me pass that into the toilet. Right. I'm not doing that. And so then they scheduled it for that Tuesday. And I said, are you going to let me walk around knowing I have a dead baby inside of me for the next 4 days? So I had to lie. So the next day, my best friend, then at the time, said to me, just lie, just say that you're bleeding. Because then it's seen as an emergency because you can get an infection, and that's what you have to do. So I did. And then on Sunday morning at like 6 in the morning, I went in for an emergency D&C, and that's how I had to do it. So I didn't have to go through it. And I asked them
Wow.
to do the testing and all of that because prior to the first three, I had to collect the contents of my uterus, which is what they said. And then you put it
Oh
in
my
the
God.
fridge and then you bring it into your next doctor. Like you bring it
Oh my
into the
God.
doctor.
Wow.
Yeah. So I'm like, I'm not going through that again. So I really do not take,
Yeah.
I know what people think about abortion, that they think that you can do it up until the ninth month. They think all these crazy things. They think people use it as a form of birth
Birth
control. And I'm
control.
here to
Yeah.
tell you that is not the case. That is not the case. It is a traumatic event, and you live with it for the rest of your life. There's really not a day that I don't think about it.
About it.
And every time I see a baby that would be around that age, I think about that, as I did with my pregnancy losses too.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But the thing with them was they wouldn't do the D&C this time around because they need to see the heartbeat because it hadn't developed yet. And I said, if I see the heartbeat, I won't be able to do it.
Right. Right.
So I would have had to wait 2 weeks being pregnant, knowing I didn't want to continue with it.
Wow.
Knowing that and
Yeah.
living with that until I went back to see a heartbeat. I just couldn't do
Yeah.
it. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
opted for the plan B. So that's what I ended up doing.
Okay.
So it was before that whole time period, but it was devastating. So in a way, like she was fortunate that it happened naturally and then she didn't have to make that choice.
Yeah.
Because I'm at that age, like I was at that age too. It's like I got back my body. I got back my life. I could focus on work. I was building my career further, building my businesses. And why can't I have that?
Right.
Why can't I have that too?
Yeah.
So that would have primarily affected me.
Yeah.
Mike would have been affected, but not in the same way. Primarily me.
Yeah.
It's going to be everything that I have to do, and you're starting over again. I didn't even have anything related to babyhood anymore
Right.
because my kids are going on 15 and 12. So
Yeah.
there's just so many elements really of that series that I think women in general of our age can relate to specifically. And I think they do a really great job of kind of telling it.
I think they do too. I know they got a lot of criticism when they first came back, and I really did enjoy. I did enjoy the second season more than the first. I don't know if it's because I had to get over Big dying, even though I know they had to do that, but that really like killed me. But I guess what would they have done? And then I felt like the second season flowed more. I had a little bit more feel of the Sex and the City. I'm not sure. I know that I had read about that too, that they were, I think, trying more to get more into that flow. I do really enjoy it. I wanted to thank you for sharing that because that's definitely a really, really personal story. I didn't know. I did have a miscarriage, just one, before I had my son. I did not pass naturally. I had to have a D&C. What happened was it was right before Easter. So when I was trying to schedule an appointment, they're like, everybody's on like vacation. And I was like, what? So I had to wait.
You did wait.
It was a long time. I mean, I feel like it was a long time. And I kept hoping that I would naturally pass. Because I did not. I went to my acupuncturist, even though I had already an appointment. We were trying, like she tried to do something to help. So that Easter, I was a zombie. I was just like, I just sat there. I remember and watched. Oh, thanks. Yeah, it is
terrible.
terrible. It's terrible. And
it's a big deal.
I thought I was 11 weeks along when that was when they didn't find the heartbeat. But I lost the baby probably around 8 weeks, we think. But I had like
That's
really
what
no
they say.
symptoms.
Yeah.
I had no symptoms. Like I still, and then after I had the miscarriage and I had the DNC, they say you have to wait to try to get pregnant. And they do
Right.
tests, for the hormone levels because you're not supposed to.
Right. Yeah.
I had to wait just because of scheduling, they were saying. Maybe overall, maybe it was 7 days. I'm not sure. I know I had to wait till after Easter and it happened
That is
right before
insanity.
Easter. Yeah. So I just, on Easter, I remember.
Wish I knew. I would have told you to lie. And they would have had to take you in emergency. Isn't that just insane that
I didn't even know that. Oh my God. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I had to lie even with Margot. I had to lie. I was in labor, and with Tessa, I had a very traumatic birth. It was like 48 hours of labor, and I ended up with a section anyway, and they couldn't wait for the epidural to like go in effect, and I felt it all, and they had to knock me out. I was like screaming, "You're ripping me apart!" Like all this crazy stuff.
Oh my God.
And so with Margot, I was like, hell no, I'm not doing that. And I got doulas involved and all of this kind of thing. And we lied. We lied about my water breaking to buy me extra time because the hospital rule is 24 hours. You only have 24 hours because that's their arbitrary number. And then we give you a section. So it's 24 hours after your water breaks. If you don't have the baby, naturally, vaginally, that's what the course of action is. Okay. And so that's what we did. And that's what the doulas did. And they fed me yogurt in the bathroom. They snuck me because you're not supposed to eat case of, it's like, this isn't an illness. This is having a baby. Like, we need energy in order to push a baby out. Yeah. After being in excruciating pain for God knows how long. So you starve us. Yeah. You don't let us walk. You don't, and so, still I ended up having Margot vaginally, but it was a VBAC, but I had to fight for it because they were trying to schedule my section. And they said, well, because of your last pregnancy, blah, 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 and it's going to be scheduled on this date. I said, you can schedule it, but I'm not coming. I am not showing up. So do what you need to do. It's cool. I'm not going. I said, show me proof that I'm going to have uterine rupture. Like, I'm a difficult patient, right? So they had to tell me that they found it out, 0.05% chance of uterine rupture if you choose to go with the VBAC, but women are not really offered that option. It's just C-section. So if you have a C-section first, you have C-section next.
C-section, yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's not true. That's not what you have to do, but that's what they tell you. So I watched The Business of Being Born, like all the information I could possibly get. But anyway, so that's my little story about lying to the medical field. Yeah. That's what you have to do in order to get the care that you're asking for.
It's crazy.
So, yeah.
All right.
There you go, Jack. Aren't you happy you asked me to do this?
You know what? I really am, because this is an important topic, actually, I think. Okay. So
great. I do too.
Yeah. I was going to say, who's your favorite character in this series, you think?
In this series? Do you have one? It's so funny. I always thought I related most to, I guess, Charlotte in some ways, because she always wanted love and that fairy tale, and I kind of thought I wanted that. And I was never like Samantha. I wasn't like that, and I think I had like a little piece of each of them. I think all of us do.
I think a lot of people do.
Right?
Yeah.
But I did enjoy Charlotte's kind of journey back into work, and where she threw her phone into the blender of like
The margaritas.
Or something because they kept calling her. It was like the kids, and she was out and just enjoying her night, having a celebratory drink because she landed a big account or whatever she sold, like some piece of art. And she's trying to enjoy herself. And, you know, the kids, it was like, Harry, when are you coming home? What is for dinner? Blah, blah.
Oh my
like,
gosh.
Leave me alone.
Yeah.
And it's that phone, you know, or, you know, I think we're all tied to these phones now. They can get a hold of you whenever they want. Everybody, work, mom, dad, doesn't matter who. And she just had it, you know?
Yeah.
So I kind of relate to pieces of their journey, you know, all of them on their separate journeys, I think. But, well, who do you relate to? Would you say?
Okay, so back when Sex and the City was on, my friends all called me Miranda because she was the man hater thing. Not that I hated men, but I think I used to really be like, no, it's not right about this. Like a lot of like the way, not saying my friends got rolled over by men, but I would always be like that. Like so I got the man hater thing. So I think now within Just Like That, I don't know. I don't know. I guess little pieces of each of them. I'm really trying to think because I'm not in the situation of like, I don't think of any of them like really at all.
And I don't have that kind of wealth either. Like that's the whole thing. Like, you know, they are all wealthy. And in the beginning, back in the first series, you know, it wasn't like that. Carrie was like this starving artist. They were all
she had
in different
best clothes ever.
She'd spend her rent money on, you know, shoes. And it's like, well, how do you make like no money because you're a writer?
Right.
And afford your apartment and afford all the Jimmy Choos and, you know, everything else. But
I mean, I think like for this series, there's just been maybe little parts of stuff like Lisa with miscarrying, feeling what it feels like to miscarry. And although I did not get pregnant, I mean, I got pregnant on purpose at 39 and I had him 6 weeks before I was 40. But I know too, if I mean, 48, I mean, I guess physically it is still possible, but I would be like, oh my God. I even remember after I had my son, you know, he was not a good sleeper. I was delirious. And I remember like, some people would be like, why don't you have another one right now? You know, like right now, right away. I'm like, I don't think I'll live through it. Like, I think I am too old for this, like too old for this lack of sleep thing, all that. And
it's okay. I want to do it.
I remember saying to Dave, I was like, oh my God, what would you do? Like I got pregnant again. He was like, no.
I know.
But I mean, back if I had been younger when I started, yes, I would have loved to have two. I think only child is, I mean, it's fine. He's fine. He's very, very happy. But I have siblings. I have two sisters. I would love for him to have had a sibling. But now I'm like, oh my God, there's no way. So I could relate to that part of that with her. And I don't know. I'm trying to think really. I know back when it was Sex and the City, I was like, I'm a Carrie. I mean, I think everybody was like, I'm Carrie. And like, I think I had curly hair.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. That's all the questions I think I have for the show. So we didn't even mention, you mentioned the hollow, like when you were just talking, but we didn't even say. So how did you had mentioned you worked in publishing. That's what you studied. Yes. Did you study English in school?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So I knew you were a writer. I know you love to write. And I know your Facebook posts are beautifully written. I'm telling you. I mean, that sounds dopey, but they really are. They're really beautifully written. You're a great writer. So how did you go from that to...
But all the writing I get to do anymore.
Right. That's true, right? How did you... Yeah, well, some people write on Facebook and you're like, no, you should not have written because, sorry.
Yes, like do not write anything.
Spelling, just share. Whatever. Anyway, how did you go from working in publishing to owning restaurants, right? How many restaurants?
I have three, I guess,
Oh
but
my
so I
gosh.
have two full service. Then I have a vegan deli right on Lark
Okay.
Street. If you remember Lark Street back
Yes.
from the day.
In
And
Albany.
then
Yep.
yes. And then I have, and then we have something that's associated with the deli. It's a wholesale food company. So we make
Oh,
vegan
cool.
meats and cheeses. So we have a
Oh,
building
wow.
in downtown Albany. So we sell to restaurants, to local restaurants. And we
Oh
just
my
got picked up
gosh.
by Driscoll Foods. So they're going to distribute for us, but we're in the process now of just getting equipment. There's like a lot of equipment that we need in order to like mass produce vegan mozzarella sticks. So that's our focus. And
Wow.
yeah, so that's
That's
interesting.
really cool. I
Thank
didn't know
you,
that.
thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's it's certainly not just me. It's a team of people, and it's
Mm-hmm.
partners that are talented, and
Yeah.
it's. So how did I get into it? When we moved up here, so we were in the city up until 2007. Mike's former boss slash friend, he was opening up another restaurant. Well, he was buying Jillian's. Do you remember Jillian's from like back in the
Yes.
day?
Was it
Dave
written
and
in
Buster.
cursive or no? Was
Yes,
it written in cursive?
yes, it is
Yes.
written in cursive. Absolutely.
Yep.
And there was one in downtown Albany, and I don't know if you were around here during those days. You were probably in because you went to grad school at where did you go to grad school?
St.
SUNY,
Rose. I
right?
went to St. Rose, grad
I
school,
knew
St.
you were
Rose.
in Albany. Okay, that's right.
I
So
didn't
you
live
were,
up
but
there though. I didn't live in Albany. I
okay,
commuted. Yeah.
got you. But I think
Yeah.
during that time, Jillian's was probably in its heyday. I don't even
Okay.
remember necessarily, but Ralph wanted Mike to come up and to be the general manager. So I had just had my first miscarriage actually, and
Mm-hmm.
so we decided, um, you know what? Because I didn't know if I wanted kids, honestly. So when I first got pregnant and I lost it, that's when I wanted babies. Like that's what
Mm-hmm.
triggered me into that whole. I was 31, and I hadn't even like really given it a lot of thought yet.
Mm.
So just for my own stuff, I was like,
Yeah.
I don't really know if I'm suited for this. And that's how we moved up here. We're like, well, we're going to do this whole kid thing now. We're going to start a family or try to. And I was working a lot of late nights. At that time, I segued out of publishing and I was working at UBS Financial Services. So totally different kind of
Mm-hmm.
work, very long days. Like if you left at 5 o'clock, oh, are you taking a half day? You get like a lot of
Oh God.
innuendos
Yeah. Yeah.
kind of like that. And I was looking for other work and and it was within the same kind of field, which you made more money, except you're selling your soul for like barely six figures,
Yeah.
but at the time I was 29 and that was the trajectory that I was on. And I said, this is only getting worse and worse just in terms of time. This was before the days of like working from home. Okay.
Oh yeah.
That was
Yeah.
the thing.
Way before.
You had to commute. You had to take like 13 different modes of transportation in order to get,
Yeah.
all of that. So I was like, this is getting harder and harder. And I really want to be able to focus on my children if I'm able to have kids. So we made
Mm-hmm.
that decision to move up here thinking it would be an easier life. We
Mm-hmm.
were wrong. We were very wrong. Not an easier life. It is not a slower pace. It
Right.
is just different. It's
Yeah.
different. But it's equally difficult. And so that's how we got into the business. And then the recession happened. And Mike basically was trying to keep Jillian's going. And he took a pay cut to keep the business rolling. And just over the years, they started to owe us so much. And they couldn't pay us back because of everything going on. So we ended up taking over the Bayou Albany, which is now the Hollow. So I got a defunct business that was basically kind of driven into the ground. Not very profitable. That's what I was given as not, and given we still had to pay off their debt, like $25,000 worth of debt to their suppliers. Because if you are not paying your suppliers, you can't have a restaurant. Like, you can't get alcohol delivered, you can't get food delivered, so we paid that all off so we could at least continue business until we figured it out. And so that's how it came to be. And I got involved because I just told my husband, I said, well, I didn't agree with a lot of your decisions that got us into this position. Now I'm involved. And that's kind of just how it came to be. I just didn't trust it anymore. I kept putting my faith in, him, and he's an excellent businessman and he learned a lot, but it was the first time that he ran like a multi-million-dollar business.
Yeah.
During the worst time that you can possibly run something like that.
Right.
And that's why I got involved, and it just kind of snowballed,
Yeah.
And that's why. So,
wow.
Yes. And I wasn't welcomed, believe me. It was not with open whatsoever. Not from the regulars, not from the staff that was already there. They thought I was this pushy New Yorker that, thought I knew everything and wanted to change everything because it wasn't working. And it was like 2 years of infighting, I'd say.
Wow.
And tons of misogyny. Oh my God. Never in my life did I ever experience, in the last 10 years, the misogyny that I have dealt with being in this industry. Publishing is women and gay men. I never experienced any of this. If anything, I would sit back and be like, these people, I'm in this boardroom on the 23rd floor of like Random House, Bertelsmann building, overlooking like Broadway and 45th, I think I was on. Like, these people are going to kill each other over a Winnie the Pooh display. Like, that's my life.
Yeah.
I shit you not. Like, honestly.
That's so funny.
And so I wasn't used to being at a beer festival that we're, putting out food and promoting our business. And I have one of my staff members with me, this, kid named Dan, who's very helpful. And this person coming around and trying to sell us something, but directing it to Dan. Just directing it to Dan. And poor Dan is like... just like looking at me like nervous as all hell, like, and I just sat back. I'm like, I'll wait.
Yeah.
Just lean back. And I just, waited for the conversation to come to a kind of a pause. And Dan's like terrified and like, well, you might want to talk to the owner. It's her. And he's like, oh, yes. People with vaginas can own restaurants too. Yes.
Wow.
And that's just one example, or being introduced by my staff as Mike's wife. Like, initially, that doesn't happen anymore, but there's so much like that, and you have to be a certain way in order to get respect. And then you're, called crazy, or you're called the B word, or, all that. Yeah. It's very alive. And I'm an owner. Like, technically I'm the top of the food chain in terms of that, but I'm not.
Right.
And and that is just the reality. That is the reality of it, Yeah. It's
crazy.
The truth. Yeah, it is. And I really didn't know. I really, honestly, it was such a surprise.
Yeah. I wouldn't have known that either. So the Hollow, which I've been to, that's down. Call it downtown.
Right. I remember when you guys came in like a million years ago, right? Like,
it was pre-COVID.
It was
pre-COVID.
Well, yeah, it was.
Pre-COVID.
You have to come back in.
Yes, I know. Don't get up there.
Come to Rosanna's. If you know anyone that's like gluten-free, or has like dairy allergies, it is an Italian restaurant that specializes in gluten-free, which is hard for gluten-free people to ever go to an Italian restaurant.
So Rosanna's,
Yes.
And that's where?
23 Dove Street. So we're in Center Square neighborhood. So it's like the street down from Lark. So it's parallel to Lark Street. So Lark's here and Dove is the next one. So if you're headed downtown, just for context.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's a beautiful little area. It looks like Brooklyn. I've always loved that area to me. It always, with the brownstones. And
yep.
stones.
Oh, I know you're talking. Yep. And so and I know you have vegan options on the Hollows menu, right?
I do.
And then on so we have Rosanna's.
Yes, we have Rosanna's, and then we have Subculture Vegan Deli and Provisions. So that's up on Lark Street.
How long have you been a vegan?
Well, I'm not vegan actually. So that's the interesting thing. I'm vegetarian. Okay. I do eat vegan a lot, but I'm not vegan.
Okay.
What my goal was here, when we first moved here, there was just really nothing that I could eat. I've been vegetarian since I'm 29, so it's 19 years now. And I think you remember, like, I was a big steak person. Like, that's what I ate all the time. Just all I ate was steak. Steak and potatoes. That was how I grew up.
Yeah.
And so when I changed my diet, being in New York, it's just so much easier. There's everything. It's just more mainstream. Even 20 years ago, it was more mainstream.
Yes, definitely.
Here it wasn't. And when we first moved up here, it's like there was really nothing that I could eat. And so that was the motivation to bring in like a lot of vegetarian food. So initially I tried to bring in a lot of vegetarian food. And then after COVID, so we were closed for about 6 months. And then when we had our meetings for the reopening, I said, listen, it's not going to cut it anymore. Vegetarian just doesn't cut it. It has to be vegan because it's easier, quote unquote, right, to work with dairy. Yeah. And I don't have anybody that is in my kitchen that went to like a culinary school that was plant-based. Like they don't know how to make this kind of food. So it's been a learning curve for everyone. But that's really why we introduced vegan food. But also what I really wanted was a vegan counterpart to all of our meat-based items. And we're almost there. We really are. So if you wanted mozzarella sticks, you can also get them vegan. So you can come to our restaurant with your like crunchiest vegan friend, and you both can find something that you're going to be happy with. Yeah. Because I'm sorry, like vegetarian people and vegan people, we just don't want to eat lettuce. Like we're not rabbits. Yeah. We want to eat satiating, interesting, flavorful food too. And I felt for so long, so many restaurants were doing themselves a disservice because they're missing out on this demographic. And it's not even vegan and vegetarian people. There's so many dietary allergies today. Yeah. You cannot get away from it.
It's crazy.
There's lactose. There's all kinds of nut allergies, gluten, and you have to be able to accommodate people because that's people's families. Like we get tons of family celebrations because it's too difficult for the host to like prepare a million different types of things. So they come to us. That's even great. For, weddings and all kinds of dinner party showers, things of the sort, as we can accommodate.
That's really cool.
And you just have to be willing to like honestly shift and pivot. Yeah. As much as I hate that term because of the pandemic. Yeah. As much as I hate that. Pivoting, that's all you heard.
Yes.
Thing, it was terrible. But
so what made you go from having steak all the time to vegetarian?
Okay, interesting story. So this is another one. You were gonna be like, I'm never asking her again to be on my podcast because she comes up with the craziest stuff. Like these stories are ridiculous. And also probably controversial, right? So I'm at UBS. I was rather new there. I was a consultant and I in their marketing department, and I was working with their designers, and they have lunch every day. And there's like a company cafeteria because they don't want you to leave. They want you to stay put. And so we were all eating there. And I remember eating a buffalo chicken wrap. That's what I purchased. And I sat down and I'm eating my food, whatever. And they're all chit-chatting. And they're talking about this article that one of them read about a sex farm out in Washington State. And yeah, a sex farm. And apparently, I know, and nor do I never wanted to know that this existed. And I'm sorry to even share it.
It's okay.
Yeah, the people would go there and pay to
now I know.
And rape the animals, mostly goats and sheep, because they're so docile.
This is in Washington State?
Yeah, and this was 20 years ago, and I hope all that doesn't happen, but I'm sure it does in the world. But anyway, so they were all laughing and making jokes like goat, Fucker, and, saying all these things. And I was just like, I felt so sickened by it.
Yeah.
Like my spine. I couldn't even help it. And I stood up and I was holding my chicken wrap. And I said, I really don't find this entertaining. And I don't find that funny. And I can't believe that you're even laughing at such a thing. And I just stomped off. I walked off. I left. I lost my appetite, obviously. And I put down my tray in like the area that you put your trays down. And I went back to work. And one of the ladies had come up to me and she felt really badly. She's like, hey, I just wanted to come check on you. Are you okay? And I know you got really upset. And I said, yeah. I said, I don't know where that came from. I was just really just disgusted and horrified by it. And she's like, why don't you should go on to PETA's site. They do so much like animal, blah, 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 rescues and advocacy. And she wasn't a PETA person whatsoever. So she just mentioned it to me. I'm like, all right, I'll go on to PETA. And you go on to PETA and that's it. I just like went down the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
That was it. I watched a few things. I'm good. I will never eat that again. And that was the last piece of meat I ate was that buffalo chicken wrap.
Wow.
And that was it. And then I was, I just voraciously like read as much information as I possibly could. And what really cemented it for me was The Food Revolution by John Robbins. And he was the benefactor of the Baskin-Robbins empire. His father was Robbins. So, which is an ice cream, which is dairy, know? So that's his entire life is funded by the exploitation, right, of cows. So he turned vegan and wrote this 500-page book. And I think it just had its like 25th anniversary edition or 40th or something. It's been around for a really, really long time, broken up into these 5 different parts. There's like agriculture, there's the animal aspect of it, it's the health aspect of it. And I've just learned so much information. It's like, once you know, and then you have to make a decision based on what you knew. And I just didn't feel good anymore eating the way that I was. And so I needed to make a change, and it did. It changed my whole life. Just that one lunch.
Yeah.
If I didn't go to that lunch, my whole life would be different today.
Wow.
Likely I would still be eating meat. I don't know if I would have had any restaurants, nor would they have had this kind of these menus. And I think that the work, as much as I feel bad about having meat on my menu, I can't change the world.
Right.
And if I can introduce plant-based foods that are delicious, it could sway someone on our team, even a little bit, even if you could lean into it, even if it's just like one meal every single week.
Right.
That's what helps you. It better for your body, better for our planet, better for the animals. You're lessening cruelty, and it's just more good vibes that are out there, So that's how I live with myself. That's what I do.
No, that's great. I think that's great. I think it's realistic,
and you can't browbeat people into it, It does not work. And, you just offer it and you make a suggestion and you see what happens.
Yeah. I think that's great. Are your children vegetarian?
They are.
Okay.
Mike is too. Mike is more pescatarian. Mike is pescatarian because he eats more fish. He does incorporate fish.
Yeah.
Tess will eat like a little bit of fish. Margot, no, she doesn't. So yeah, it's just what they know. And we've talked to them about it.
Yeah.
Now it's just so normalized. It's really like no big deal, especially in school too, because at first I'm like, oh God, are they going to be teased? But
you mentioned, let's see, should I talk about, you got into yoga. Is that, so for yoga for you, is it more than just keeping you in shape? Is there more to it? Do you have a spirituality aspect of it? Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yes. Like yoga changed my entire life, I think. I didn't even feel completely myself here, probably living here, because I'm not from here. I'm not from the capital region. Like I'm literally living in Mike's parents' house. This is Mike's parents' former house, which we bought from them, which I never wanted. So I always felt like I'm living in my mother-in-law's house and my friends are downstate and my parents are downstate and my life is downstate. So it took me a little bit to like acclimate to life here. I had a life upstate when we were in college.
Right.
That's very different. It's completely different from being like a college kid to living here in like a full-time way. And, the only friends I had were a couple restaurant people, but their lives were so opposite than everyone else's life. And the friends that like some mommy friends that I did have, they would, weekends are for families and they'd hang with their families and hang with their hubbies. My husband's working until he doesn't come home until 2 a.m,
Right.
So I'm by myself. So I have felt like I've raised my kids alone for the most part, initially, because he just wasn't here. He just couldn't be here.
Yeah.
And that's just what it is. Like a business is 24 hours, especially in the very start, at the very beginning. It's
restaurant too, I feel like even more, right? Yeah.
Oh God. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's terrible. But when I found yoga, I eventually found this group of people that I fell in love with, and I finally felt I had community again. And the last time I felt like that was my sorority days, to be honest.
Yeah.
That is the last time I felt like I belonged to something bigger than myself, and I just was addicted. I was addicted. It was my life. It was my social life. I met all these great people. They were moms too. Our friends became friends, and so it was a really great period of time for me. And it's been, I started with yoga in 2016. So now we have, I'm very close with the owner of the hot yoga spot, which is my preferred studio. She's actually my business partner now for Sub and for Halo, which is the food production company.
Cool.
Jess is vegetarian too. She's from Massapequa, so she's like a Long Island girl also.
Yeah.
And so it's brought so much good into my life. And now Jess and I do this yoga event. It's before Palooza. It's the third week in September. It's called Yoga Palooza. So it's the only free mass yoga event in the entire capital region. Like other cities do this. New York does those big mass yoga events. You've probably seen them on, on like social media, hundreds of people that are in the street. And I think our biggest was right before COVID, and we had like 600 people outside.
Wow.
So to gather that many people within the capital region and to offer a free yoga class to introduce them to yoga, that's been a wonderful thing. And that's been brought into my life because of yoga.
Sorry. Is it one day, one class, Yoga Palooza?
Yeah. So we have this music event prior to us being downtown. It was during Jillian days called Pearl Palooza. So Pearl Street, because we're on Pearl Street.
Yeah.
And it's a series of like 6 bands. So it starts at noon, it ends at 6 o'clock, and it's a free music festival for Albany, for the capital region.
Cool.
And, you know, we were putting our insurance, the insurance was our house basically, because it was our event. So we took on all the risk, and we had to hire police presence, and you deal with the city of Albany to get the street shut down. Like, it's a big deal.
Wow. Yeah.
God forbid if anyone gets hurt, I could lose my house, you know?
Right.
But we believed in this event. And then the downtown Albany bid saw how many people were coming for Pearl Palooza. Like probably at its height, we would get like up to 10,000 people would come out.
Wow.
That was a million years ago. It's definitely changed just over time, but we just had our 14th festival this past September, and it's the third week, the third Saturday, and we just had our 7th Yoga Palooza. So Yoga Palooza happens first at like 11 o'clock, and then we go straight into
cool.
So it's just like another way to bring a different demographic into downtown Albany prior to the festival. So it's a family event. You can bring your children, you can bring your best friends, you can bring your boss, just bring anybody, you know, it's open. And it's such a beautiful experience. So Jess puts on 4 different instructors. They each take like a little period of time, and they just pass the mic to the next teacher, and they continue with the class. And it's, you know, to see people practicing yoga together in, you know, harmony, it's a really beautiful sight.
Yeah. So, I love that. Yeah, I've seen like some pictures on social media and stuff. I do yoga every day.
You do?
From home. Yes, I am a yogi. I do basically Boho Beautiful. They started they're still on YouTube. It's a couple. I'll make this long story short. Basically, they're from like Canada, I think Toronto, and they left basically society and just traveled the world. He actually was a guitarist for Avril Lavigne, but he also then he was in I think like music production and marketing. I think because their videos are gorgeous. They basically traveled the world and made yoga videos that are absolutely stunning. Juliana is the wife and Mark is the husband. She is absolutely gorgeous. She's from Ukraine, and she did train like as a gymnast to be in the Olympics. And she's a dancer and just absolutely stunning. Natural blonde. I've never seen a natural. Anyway, not that you have to be blonde to be beautiful, but anyway, they were on YouTube, and it was when I was pregnant, I was having trouble, I think, falling asleep, and I watched a meditation to fall asleep, and it was her. I didn't even see her face, I don't think, and it was just sitting there. And then I somehow found them, and now they have their own platform.
Amazing.
Beautiful. So you just I'll send you some. And like I said, they're still on YouTube, and almost all their videos are on YouTube for free, but just probably ads and stuff. But their platform, there'll be some exclusive videos on there. They're just like a really wonderful couple, like everything, you know, they're just great people.
I'll have to check them out. You know, it's funny. I'm not a yoga from home person because I lack motivation. Like that's my problem.
Yeah. I hear you.
Because if I do it with the others, I don't want to look like I'm a lazy POS. So I keep with
I could see that.
No, it's like, okay, well, I don't want to look like the only person that can't do this right now.
Right.
You know, so have you ever been to like an Orange Theory before, one of those gyms?
No.
They in this region. Oh my God. But they have like a big screen, and you have to wear some kind of a watch. So it tracks your heart rate. It gives you these points. So everyone's name is up on a screen. And you're like, do I want to be the last one? I better have the pace on my treadmill right now, you know? Otherwise, I'll just be doing like a leisurely pace. Like, I'm not really burning anything, but I'm reading a book as I'm on my bike. You know? Like, no wonder I wasn't losing weight, you know? No wonder it wasn't into shape, because it has to be very concentrated, at least for me, to get into shape. You know, well, you've always been in like amazing shape, but
I bet
those annoying people.
Now, when I lived in the city, no, I was not in amazing shape when I lived in the city, even though I would work out, but damn, the drinking.
Drinking. I know. I'm just not much of a drinker anymore.
No, I'm not either. I can't.
Like here and there, but nothing too crazy.
It affects me so differently now, and just the hangover after like 2 drinks. You're like, oh my God, I'm dying. It's crazy.
It's not worth it.
No.
And I'm not like a one drinker too. Like the way we learned how to drink was school. And we didn't learn. And I'm telling my kids now, honestly, because so many bad things can happen to you. Especially when you're in college and you don't know how to drink. And I didn't know how to drink. None of us did.
Yeah.
How many of us experienced date rape, and didn't even know it was date rape until you really thought about it,
Yeah.
There's a lot of that. So I've been telling my eldest is 15 in 3 years. I can't believe it that she'll be away, that she'll go to college. And
oh my God,
he needs to really learn what the pitfalls are.
Yeah. Yep.
Of it,
Okay. On I have this few more questions for you that are totally not as serious. What is something you cannot live without? Now, this doesn't have to be. This can be deep, or it can be just completely, superficial, like a food, jewelry, whatever. Something you cannot live without. That you're like, I have to have this.
Probably my dog. I think it would be my dog Darby, honestly, because she's been my what do you call those therapy dogs?
Yeah.
And she was a COVID dog too. So she's been with me throughout this whole time, and I don't think I could live without her.
Yeah.
And my children, all the things that we would say, like
we know that part.
All that stuff, of course. Travel. I would say travel would be the other thing. Now that my kids are older, the last couple of years, I've started to travel a little bit more the way that I used to. And that's been everything. That's really been everything, because we can all have things, right?
Right.
We can all put our money into things. But I don't really, I have things. I have things.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And I don't really, I care about them, kind of, but not really. Travel is something that keeps me alive. Yeah. Because it's so earth shattering, honestly. Like I was in South Africa in October. I went on a yoga retreat.
Wow.
With this great company called Eat, Pray, Move. After that movie and book, Eat, Pray, Love. And this is my second trip with them. I was supposed to go back in 2020, and of course it got canceled because of the pandemic and blah, blah, blah. And it was rescheduled a few times, and those got canceled. So finally it happened a year ago, and that was my first. And we went to Lake Como, and that was just amazing. Just so brilliant and so beautiful. And you just see another culture and another country and different food, and you meet different people. And I went alone, and I was with a group of people that I had never met, and I made friends, and I had a great time. And I went on I booked another trip this past fall, and my father was very ill at the time. And my mother was really interesting. It was like the first time in my life, I think, that I felt that she gave me permission and said, because I didn't want to go. I was so tentative and hesitant about going, but I couldn't get my money back. And I had booked it the year before. We had no idea that my dad would be in this condition at all. And she said, you deserve to go. And I think that was the first time she ever said that I deserved something. And I just cried and I went, and I had this biblical experience, and I brought my dad kind of with me, and I took this video after I saw elephants for the first time there. And that was I can't even, there are no words to even do it. And I said, to the conservationist there. I said, you know, are you hiring? And she said, yes. I said, well, I will work for free. I would love to do this kind of work. And I thought maybe after my kids are in college, I could go back and I could spend some time there.
Yeah.
But I would want to, but she's like, well, we're actually putting together this team of an all female team of like anti-poaching.
Yeah. Yeah.
To go get poachers.
Wow.
And I said, I would be their captain. I would happily, you know, I would do that charge.
Wow. So cool.
So amazing. And it just shows you like another way you could be, another facet of what you could do.
Yeah.
Instead of, you know, being in our little bubbles, like I'm in this bubble constantly.
Yeah.
All of us are. So I'd say that.
That's awesome.
I'm sorry I keep going on mentions
there, you have very interesting stories. Come on.
Thank you.
What can't you leave the house without other than phone, blah, blah, blah?
Cheese.
Yeah, other than that, yeah.
Other than
you're like,
that.
I have to have this on me or I feel naked or I feel weird or I feel...
Yeah, no, totally. I feel like with my appearance, I feel just more comfortable put together somewhat, you know. Gone
what does that
are
mean
the
for
days.
you? Like, what does that mean? Like mascara or blush or everything? Or what does that mean for you?
No, it's definitely not everything. I just feel like I need a proper coat to feel polished, even if I'm wearing like diving clothes like underneath.
My mom,
you know, I look a little more polished if I have something structured on. That makes me feel better about myself. And you know, even like in the winter, like a pair of decent boots, just to kind of cinch everything in together. I think I would say outerwear. I feel better with outerwear because, you know, in the summertime when it's too hot to wear a coat and you're in something, you know, real simple and you look kind of dumpy or whatever, you know, I just feel like outerwear pulls things together. And also always have a nice handbag. I don't have expensive clothing, but I like a nice bag. And I buy things pre-owned. So I always really have. So I'll look for that designer bag. That's pre-owned. I try not to use leather, but like with a designer bag, how some have like the canvas coating and all that with like the leather trim. If I buy it pre-owned, damage is done. It's not having any of the off-gassing issues when you buy new products. So you're not recontaminating the environment and air. And you're giving something like a second life and it's less expensive.
Definitely.
So I like a good bag and I like outerwear. What about you?
What about me? Oh, can't leave the house without. I've answered it on some others. Really funny. Like I always have to have ibuprofen on me just in case, because if I don't, someone will get a headache. There will be something.
That's why.
I do have to wear a watch. I don't have an iPhone watch or what. I don't even know. What is it called?
Neither do I. It's just too complicated.
But there's something with a wristwatch. I feel weird if I don't have a wristwatch on.
We're also Gen X too. So we are the last generation that probably wore watches or even know what a watch is.
I know. Yeah. Kids are, because working in school too. And I'll show them a watch. One of the tests I give to test their sounds, how they say their sounds, they have a watch. And the kids will be like, clock. I'm like, kind of. Look, I have one on. But then they do end up knowing it though. They end up like knowing it somehow. So we'll see. I'll keep that alive for kids.
Millennials, the millennial generation. We are the generation that raised ourselves.
Yeah.
That's okay. We did. And my mother to this day gets really annoyed because we would say, I don't know, like during the summer, we were just gone till it got dark. We took our bikes. It was an adventure. No one knew where we were.
Nope.
No one gave a shit. Like they didn't care.
No.
They only were like, oh wait, as when those lights would go on in the neighborhood, at least in my neighborhood, that's when we knew to get our, asses back.
For me, we didn't have like street lights, but we'd be by dark in the summer, or we'd hear Jacqueline. There'd be the scream, and you're like, bye. Like everybody would be called, like you called, bye.
You can hear them.
Oh yeah. I mean, we weren't that far away either, but you heard them. I mean, those voices, and it was always a mom. You did not hear any dads yelling. It was always the mom screaming.
They didn't even know what was going on half the time. The dads, they didn't know. They were like, I go to work, I come back, there's a lot of yelling. I basically shut down emotionally and I ignore it. Maybe I'll have a beer and I'll watch a show and then I'll continue to ignore it. And then I'm just going to go to bed.
And they will watch, I know in my house, he better be able to watch that news. That was the one time he took over the TV too. Like, I mean, for us then.
News. And did you ever think one time of insisting to your father or to your mother about what was on the radio? Did you ever even suggest, I don't want to listen to this?
No.
Like a freaking hand would have came back. What? You're just like, no qualms. They just say all of it. Like, you know what would have happened to me had I responded to a parent like that?
Yeah.
I just don't. It's like, and they always are like, I'm so proud of myself. I'm so proud of myself. I'm like, good. I want you to be proud of yourself.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? It would never occur to me to say, I'm so proud of myself. I would be told, why are you so full of yourself?
Yeah.
Why are you so conceited?
You weren't all that.
Take that down a notch.
No, I brought you into this world. I can take you out.
Take you right out. Yes. My God. None of that.
Nope.
They didn't, it's a totally different time. And then my mother is like, you just exaggerate. No, I don't exaggerate. You have the phone cord wrapped around like several parts of the house because you wouldn't get off the phone and it was a cord so you can catch us. Pull us by the hair. What are you doing to your brother? It was just, it was a different time. None of that's allowed anymore. You would go to jail now. So. Isn't it so weird how that's that generation? We were the last generation of like all of that.
Yep. Yeah. True.
That's it. The buck stops right here, Jackie.
Look at us now on the remote computer. I'm a YouTuber.
It's kind of like the George Jetsons, right?
Yeah.
George Jetsons. We're on a screen and we're chit-chatting and we're far away from each other.
Yeah. It's amazing.
We can see each other. Yeah. It's like, this is what we carry these around, This is what we do now.
Personal computers. It's crazy.
It really is.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
I'm so happy we got to do this.
Me too.
And, well, thank you everyone for watching. And hopefully see you again.
Thank you.